Hello awesome people from the internet. Welcome to this video where we are going to build a cool Django block application with a rich text editor and a nice search bar. For a full preview, please check the link in the description. Also, this video is beginners friendly, so I'm going to explain each step as you code along. Now, let's get started. What you want to do now is to use the link in the description that is going to take you to this repository having all the starter files. Once you're here, make sure you're on the starter branch, which is indicated here. Now, what you want to do is to download the repository. So I'm just going to come here, click download zip. That's going to download all the starter files I need for this project. Also, if you check here, we have a main branch which has the final source code which you can use as reference. So my download is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the folder containing it. Then I'm going to copy it to my desktop. Okay, once that's on my desktop, I'm just going to extract the project. All right, I'm just going to extract the project here. That's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename the project just for conveniency. I'm going to name it my blog. Okay, I've downloaded the starter files and I've extracted them. Now what I want to do is to open this folder from VS Code. So I'm just going to head over to VS Code, then open the folder. The folder is on my desktop directory, so I'm going to go to desktop, then my blog. Once that's open, now I'm ready to go. Also, you can use any text editor of your choice, but I really like VS Code and VS Code is really common. So I'm just going to proceed with VS Code. So now, if you check here, well, we have a README file having steps we are going to follow. Let me just preview that. Alright, as you can see, we have some steps here which we are going to follow to build this project. Now, what you want to do first is to download the starter files, which we have already done. So now, what we are going to do is to create a virtual environment. Basically, a virtual environment is where we're going to save all the requirements needed by our blog application. So we're going to go ahead and create the virtual environment. This command creates the virtual environment for us on Windows. It creates a virtual environment called env. So once I click this, a folder called env is going to be created. Alright, as you can see, the folder is being created. Like I mentioned, the virtual environment is where all the project requirements are going to be saved. That is, we just need to have this virtual environment running or activated for us to work. So what we want to do now is to actually activate the virtual environment. So I'm going to use this command, which is going to activate the virtual environment. This env is the name of my virtual environment, so it's looking for a script called activate here. If I come here, I have script, then I have activate, which is going to actually activate this virtual environment. So once I press enter, this should be activated. Alright, my virtual environment is now activated, and you can see it by seeing these brackets surrounded by the name of my virtual environment. That means now my virtual environment is activated. Now what I want to do is to install all the requirements needed by a blog application. I'm going to use this command pip install requirements.txt. If you check in our starter files, we have this file called requirements.txt, which has all the requirements needed by our blog application. Alright, now let's go ahead and install the requirements. So I'm just going to paste that, press enter. Alright, it's downloading all the requirements needed by my project. Alright, I've successfully installed all the requirements needed by my project. Now what we are going to do is to create a new Django project. So Basically, this is a command used to create a Django project, and this command creates a project called core. But now what I want to do is I want to create the project in this present directory. So I'm just going to add the dot at the end of this command. Alright, as you can see, my project core has been created, indicated by this folder called core, and we should have a manage.py here. Alright, this is a manage.py file. Now that means I'm ready to go. Now what we are going to do is to actually create a Django block application, or sorry, a Django block app. So basically in Django we create apps to avoid putting all the logics of our application in this main project file. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a block app in Django, or a Django block, which is going to have all the logics needed by our block application. So let me go ahead and create that. So python manage.py start app block. This manage.py file is used to run several commands or several useful Django commands. So I'm just going to press enter, and now you can see we have a folder called block. So in this folder we're going to put all the logic needed by our Django block application. And once we have done that, what we want to do is to connect this Django block to the main project app, or to the main project file. So what I'm going to do now is actually register it or connect it. So I'm going to go to my block or my core project folder, go to settings, and then scroll down to install app. As you can see, this is where we register all the apps we are going to be needed, or all the apps our application needs. So once I do this, Django will know about the existence of this folder or of this app. Once that has been done, what I want to do now is to actually create my database and make sure everything is okay. So I'm going to use the command python manage.py migrate, which is going to create my database and make sure my project is up and running. Alright, as you can see, my database has been created and I had no error. So I'm just going to make sure my project is working okay by running the Python development server. So python manage.py run server. That should start the Django development server. So if I come now here and go to port 8000, alright, I should have this successful message making sure that my Django project is up and running. So now what I want to do is to continue building my project. Once I'm here, I'm just going to press Ctrl+C to stop the development server. Then I'm just going to clear that. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is to create a basic view. If you come here in this folder directory, you're going to see that we have a file called views.py. Basically, in the views.py, we put all the logics needed by our application. That is, all the logics needed by our Django app in getting the data from the database and sending it out to the user for display. So now I'm going to use this basic view already created here. I'm going to copy that, then I'll come to my views.py file of the blog, then I'll paste that here. So like I mentioned, the views.py is involved in getting data from a database and sending it out to an HTML file, or sending it out to a React client or any JS framework. So these are basic views. That is, it takes in a request and then sends out an index.html file. This one also takes in a request and send out an index.article.html file. So I'm just going to create a third view called articles, and then here I'm going to have articles.html too. So these are basic views that once it receives a request, what it's going to do is to just output these HTML pages. So what I'm going to do now is create those HTML pages. So I'm just going to create it in this block application. Django detects that by default. So template, then now I'm going to create those files. Index.html, alright, I've created those files. Now I'm just going to create basic h1 tag to know each page. So here I'm going to put articles, here I'm going to put article just to make sure I'm getting each of the pages. Then here I'm going to put home. So now once that is done, I'm going to head over to my notes and proceed. So once you create a views or a Django, or once you create your views, what you want to actually do now is to make sure these views have URLs which call for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file called urls.py. So well, before that, if you check well in your Django core project, you're going to see that we have a urls.py file here which has all the URLs associated to our project. But now what I'm doing is I'm creating a urls.py in this Django block, in this Django app, so that I'm going to connect it to this main project, so that each URLs related to this block app is in this block directory. And now all the URLs I want to add to my main project, I'm just going to add it from this urls.py, this main urls.py file. So once I've created this urls.py file, I'll actually have snippets here on creating the urls.py file for my blog. So I'm going to come here and paste it. So this just gives the blog, like just say this blog, these urls.py file are for my blog. And now here, this is how we actually register or call for the URL. So each time I call for my local host or my port 8000, it's just going to look in my views and then get a view called home. As you can see here, once I come here, I have a views called home. And each time I call for, let me just say /article. Each time I use /article, it's going to look in my views.py file and return a view called article. And let me go ahead and create a third URL for my articles page, article, and then it returns a views called articles. Then I'm just going to give it a name of articles, and that's it. Now what I want to do now is to connect this urls.py file in my main to my main project. So I'm going to actually just copy this command, which is going to use to include it to my main URLs. Then now actually browse to my main URLs. Once I'm here, I'm just going to import this command, these two from Django, which is include. I think that's it. Then that's it. Now what this does is it says I'm referencing my blog app from the main domain of my port 8000, and now it includes the blog URLs which is found in this directory. So in blog.urls, now I have my blog app. So now it's going to call or register these URLs here in my main project. Now I'm ready to go. Okay, I already actually created templates inside and just these example pages. So now what I'm going to do is to actually check if my views.py file, if my views are working and I've successfully connected to the urls.py file. So I'm just going to run the server python manage.py run server. So my server is running. Now I'm just going to refresh. Alright, as you can see, once I call from on port 8000, it renders the home page. As you could see on my views here, what my views does is each time I request for the home view, it returns me the index.html page. And if you check well in my urls.py file of the blog app, each time I call for the main domain or my port 8000 is going to look for the views called home and then output it or render that view. So as you can see, that's why I'm having home here. If I go to slash articles, I should have the articles page, and if I go to slash article, I should have the article page. As you can see, now I'm sure that my views are working. Now I'm sure that my views are working and they are successfully connected to the URLs. So now I'm going to proceed. To close the server, I'm just going to come here and then stop the server. Control C stops the server. So once I've stopped the server, now what I'm going to do is to configure where Django is going to find all my static files. Remember, static files are files that don't change during the execution of my blog or during when my blog is running. So I'm just going to close this blog directory and then come now to settings.py file. If you go right down to your settings.py file, you're going to come here and see static files, how to configure your static files. For more, if you want to read more on this, you can actually use this link to read more on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste what I have and then explain. So this import OS is just importing the Python module needed to browse our directory by Python. Then now these static URLs are actually the way Django is going to use to form a different URLs, and static file directory is where Django is going to look for all our static files. Media root is where Django is going to look for all our media files. That is going to be in a static file and in a folder called static images. Then this last one, static root, is where Django is going to actually copy all the static files so it can be easily accessed once it's running. So we're going to actually see this in action as we move along. So let me close that. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place my static files in the static directory. So what I'm just going to go ahead, then create a folder called static. Just to make sure I'm getting it right, let me check my settings.py file. Alright, the folder should be called static. So I've created the folder called static, and in that folder I'm going to put my CSS files, my image files, and all the rest. So this is my folder called static. This is the CSS files. This is the CSS directory, CSS folder, sorry. So remember, we had this from the starter file. So what you want to do actually now is to drag this and then drop it inside. As you can see now, my CSS is in the static directory. What I want to do now is to copy the image gist to this directory too. So I'm going to drag the image and then drop it. And there we go. Oh, there's something. Alright, as you can see now, in my static directory here, I have the CSS files, and then I have the images files. Yeah. So once that is done, I think I'm ready now to move ahead. So what we are going to do now is actually load these static files in a Django application. So to do that, what we are first going to do is to get these templates already made, this article.html page, these articles, and this index.html page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get these pages into my blog template directory. So to do that, I'm just going to get rid of these old ones. Get your own templates for your blog, or maybe create yours or edit these templates I've already made. So I'm just going to copy, drag that, and drop it. Okay, as you can see, I've copied all my templates or my HTML pages inside all my HTML pages needed by my blog. I've copied it inside this template directory. Now I've copied all the static files, my CSS and my image files inside this static directory. Now I'm just going to make sure everything is working right by running the server. I don't know why I have that. All right, run server. All right, my server is running, so I'm just going to refresh this. Okay, as you can see, everything is okay, it's working okay. Now, in fact, now we are loading this index.html file. Remember, I just updated the index.html file. If you come to blog, I have index.html file. You're going to see I have this new index.html file, and now it's working okay and it's well connected because this is the index.html file actually displaying. But now the point is it's not loading all the static files, that is the images and the CSS files. So now that's what we're going to actually do. We're going to load it from the HTML files. So now what we are going to do now is to actually use this tag, which is going to tell Django that we're loading, or we are going to be using static files in this HTML file. So I'm going to come here at the top, enter, load static, here, load static, and here, load static. That tells Django that we are going to be using static files in this directory. So I'm just going to close my terminal for now, and then now what I'm going to do is to actually load all the static files. So I'll copy this example and then show you how to proceed. So in my index.html file, as you can see, I have different static files being loaded. Number one, this is a link to the image or the icons needed. So I don't need to load this because this is not in my Django directory. So what I want to do is to actually load these stuff that are found in my Django directory. So as you can see, it's telling Django that for me to find this static file, I have to look in a folder called static, and inside my folder called static, I have the CSS folder having the styles.css file. As you can see here, in my folder called static, I have a CSS folder having style.css. Oh, here is style. Okay, here is style. Okay, it's okay. Just make sure that your namings are correct. Here I have style.css, here I have style.css. now what I'm going to do is to actually proceed and load for the rest. So now, in fact, let's just check now that this is working. My CSS file is being loaded on my index page. If I come here and refresh, oh, that's it. Now as you can see, my CSS file is being loaded. Now I'm just going to proceed and load all the other static files. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually look for all the static files and then use this opening tag. So I'll go down, okay, that should be it. I've actually opened it, so now I have to close it. I have this image, and that should be it. So I'm done with my index.html file. Let me just check that the images have been loaded. All right, everything is being loaded. So now I'm good to go to the other pages. So I'm just going to go now and do the same on the other pages. So I'll copy this CSS here, come here, then actually load these since they are similar, and also here. Remember, if you have different CSS files, you have to name them accordingly and how they are found in your Django directory. So I'm going to do that. Then in my articles page, I'm going to load all the static files. Okay. Okay. Okay, article.html page. Okay, my article page is loading correctly. Now I'm going to do that to my articles page. And that's it. My articles page is loading correctly. Alright, as you can see, I've successfully loaded all of my static files. Now I'm going to proceed. So I'm just going to close that, close this and this. Then now I'm proceeding. Now after loading that, what you want to do now is to create a models files. If you come to your blog application, you're going to see that you have a file called models.py. Actually, this file is where you're going to define which data you're going to be saving in your database. And let me do that quickly by creating my own models now. Alright, as you can see, I've gone ahead and created my models.py file. So I'm going to explain now what's happening here. So here I'm importing the Django models. Here I'm importing the time zone need Django ETUs. Like this as something, since I'm going to be saving time in my like I'm going to save in a time related field on my models. I'm also going to place that here. Then now I'm going to import the Django basic, because Django comes with already an old model, so and a user model which is going to be used to save the database, the user. And this user model already has like the username, the login, admin the username, the email, and other fields related to the user, which you are going to actually appreciate that once you get in an admin interface. Now this is what is used. This is used by Django to form some URLs. So if you come here, we have the from CKEditor upload fields. This is actually what is going to give a blog application the rich text editor. Now, if you proceed now, number one, I'm going to, maybe I was not clear, but I'm going to try to explain this better. So here, to create a Django model, we have to create a class which inherits from Django models.model, which I imported it here. Now for the profile, I want to make sure that each profile or each author of an article should be related to a user, or which is going to have a username, first name, last name. Now, so I'm going to just inherit I'm just going to now create a foreign key or a one-to-one relationship between this profile and the Django basic model, which is called user, which is actually what provides us with the username and password, which you can already log in. So basically, a profile will already be related to a user in a database. Now I'm going to create another field called first name and last name, which are character fields. Then email, which is also a character field. Profile pic, which is an image field. And for me to be able to have this image field, I actually needed the Django, or the requirements for you to work with image fields in Django. You need Pillow. Pillow is a Python imaging module. So for me to be able to work with this, I actually needed to install Pillow. And here I have upload to. So it's going to upload all of my image file in a folder called profile, which we are going to see that in action soon. I also have a bio, which is a text field. Twitter, which is a URL field to my Twitter account, which you can modify as you wish. Then I have this little function which output the name of this user or of this author of this profile. So we're just going to, if we have the last name, it's just going to append and add the last name, else it's just going to return the name. Now I have this function, I have this article manager, which is going to be used to return all the published article. That is, I want to make sure that I have some draft articles in my blog. In such way that once I want to publish it now, I'm just going to use this article manager to publish all my articles. As you can see, it filters all the articles and make sure it gets all the articles which are being published with the status published. So next, I have the model called tag, which is just going to contain all the tags related to each article. Now this string method, if you are used to Python or not, this string method basically just returns, if I'm actually printing a profile model, it's just going to return this name. If I'm printing the tag model, it's going to return the name. And now I have my article model, which is related to an author. An author has a foreign key relationship with the profiles. That is, each article should have an author which is related to this profile. So I have an author with a foreign key to this profile. That is, a foreign key means one article should have an author, or one article should have one author, one and only author. So after this, I have the headline of the article, which is a character field, and the subline same. Then I have an image field. The image field for that article, that is, it's going to be an image field, and it's going to upload it to the article folder. And in case we don't have an image added to this article, it's just going to get by default this image called placeholder image. If you come here and go to our static files, you're going to see that, remember that Django looks for all the media files here. So here we're actually going to add a folder. Here we'll need to add any placeholder image so that Django will be able to load this image. That is, if I save an article without providing an image, it's just going to use this placeholder image. So for example, here I think I had a placeholder image. Okay, I don't have a placeholder image, but you can actually go ahead and create or load your own placeholder image here and just add it, so that each time you create an article without a placeholder, Django is just going to go ahead and load that. So now I'm just going to close this. So now we have a future tag, which is, we have a future field, which is a Boolean field, and the default is false. This future is going to be used to display all the articles on our main blog section. That is, if you want a blog article to be featured, you just have to toggle this to true. Then now we have the tags field of an article, which is a many to many field. That is, each blog can have many tags. That is, a blog model should have many tags. Now we have this option, which is either draft or publish, which is going to be used to identify a draft and publish articles. Then now here we have this slug field. Which is just going to be used to get this article or get a specific instance of this article, and we're going to actually see that in action as we move. Then we have publish, which is the date time, which is a date time field. That is a date this article was published, and we're actually able to use this because, as I mentioned, we imported date time from Django utils. Then now we have the status of the article, which is by default a draft. Then now once you want the article to be published, you just have to toggle it to publish. Then basically Django has the default manager. That is, this is a default manager, which you indicate here by object, which is equal to models.manager, and it's what permits you to have different and like it permits you. Remember, we are going to see that in action. So Django comes in with an admin interface, which you can already manipulate the data there. So this default manager is used to add, delete. It provides all those functionality like to add, delete some models. So yeah, since I define a custom manager for this article, what I want to do is I want to indicate which one is a default manager using this, and then now this is actually going to be now the articles manager. as you can see, I've dropped these, the default manager and the custom managers here. Then this is actually going to be used later, not now, so I will just comment this out. So we're going to actually use this later, which is just going to use, which will be used to return an article, a specific article. So I've commented that out. Then now we have the class meta, which is just going to is used to display a data. So this class meta just like gives some meta tags to the data. So here I'm just passing the like this call, I'm passing ordering equals publish, so it means it's going to order these articles in terms of the way they were published. So now then I have the string method which returns the headline of this article, and that's basically it. As you move along, you're going to see these fields in action. So if you want to read more on the Django models or how to create your own models, you can go to the Django documentation and actually read on the models.py file and then modify the model as you wish. You can just go django.utils and see all the models or all the tools you have in django.utils, and can also check which other types of fields you can register. So now once you are done with the model, now I'm going to proceed. So I've created the model. After creating the model, now what we want to do is to actually apply those changes to our database. That is, we have a database now. We already have a database, but now this database does not have the changes from these models. So what I want to do is to use the command called python manage.py make migration. Okay, my server is running. Okay, Control C closes the server. Then now I'm going to make migrations. All right, as you can see, that's created the model called tag, created the model called profile, and created now the models called article. What this command does, it actually creates all the models. That is, it transfers the models and get them ready to be mapped into SQLite code. Then now once I actually migrate, that is python manage.py migrate. Now what Django is going to do is it's going to convert all these models into SQLite commands, which are going to be used to create our tables in the database. So I'm going to paste that, and it has gone ahead and created all the tables in our database. Now what we want to actually do is to create a super user. Remember, when I was trying to explain that Django comes in with a user model. So now we're actually going to start using some functionalities that are related to the user. So with this command, you create a super user which is able to access the Django admin interface. So I'm going to use this command to create a super user. Let me say admin. Email address, I'm just going to leave that blank. Then password. All right, the password is too common. Yeah, I'm just going to say yes. All right, my super user has been successfully created. Now what I want to do is to actually just run the server and make sure everything is working okay. So I'm just going to run the server. Okay, everything should be working okay. Let me refresh. All right, everything is working right. So now I'm going to head over here to this. Now what we are going to do is we're going to register these models to our admin interface. Well, basically, as I've run the server, now I'm going to actually access the Django admin interface, which is a ready to use tool for each Django application. All right, now I have the Django admin interface, so I'm just going to use admin. My username was admin, password is password. All right, as you can see, I'm in my admin interface now, and basically what we have here is just the ready to use user models. as I mentioned, that Django already comes with the user models, and this user model is what we were actually referencing in our models.py. So when I was importing this is the user model I was talking about. So now, as you can see, if I click here, my user model has username, password, first name, last name, email address, and all the rest of these, which I'm just using, creating a one-to-one relationship with my profile in such a way that each profile should have a user model, and then now I can also have another associated first name, last name, or email address, and that's it. So we have our admin interface, which is ready to be used. Then now what I'm going to do is to add those different models I just created. That is, I'm going to add these different models so I can have access to them on my admin interface. So I can actually use the default managers, which are, like I mentioned, once you add each article to the admin interface, I have default managers which I use now to edit them or to work on them. So I'm just going to copy. This is what we are going to use to register all the models in our admin interface. So I'm just going to copy this. So let me explain. So basically we are importing the admin command from Django. Then from this, when we use dot, it means we're referencing a folder here. So from here, from this directory, I import models. Once I import models, now I know that my models.py file has all of the other models. So I'm going to use this command, admin site register models.tag. Is going to add the tags to my admin interface. Admin site register profile models.profile is going to add that to my interface. And also this command, which is a little bit different now, which is admin register models.article. So I'm registering the articles models, and now I'm just passing in some little configuration, which you can also check about specific configuration by reading on Django admin on the Django documentation. I'm going to leave a link to the Django documentation in the description. So now this is going to be used now to pass like some custom features about the way I'm registering this. So I'm just going to say that list display is used now to display this in order. So I'm going to display it in terms of headline, status, slug, and author. Then now this pre-populated field, it means the slug, it means that this slug, once I'm filling my headline, is going to pre-populate the slug with that name. Now let's see that in action. If I come here and refresh, okay, that's not been loaded. Oh, boom. All right, as you can see now, I have access to my articles model, profile model, and tag model. If I come to my articles model, what I want to do now is actually create a new article. Wait. All right, I'm having an error. Reverse for CKEditor upload not found, which is not a valid pattern. Okay, let's solve that issue. It's related to this. All right, that's just because we have not yet. Okay, if you come here, so our models.py file, models.py, we have the body feature, which I think I omitted, sorry. So now this, like I mentioned earlier, this rich text uploading field is going to be used to add like a rich text editor on our article. So this body inherits from the rich text editor, and now this is actually throwing out an error because we have not yet finished to configure like the rich text editor, which we are going to do in a bit. So now let's just move ahead. Let me just show you like the default manager for this profile. If I come here and say add, as you can see, I can already edit this profile. I can add this admin to this profile. Then now I can create a username, create an email, choose a profile picture, create a bio, create a Twitter link. So that's it. And then I can do that and then save. Once that has been saved, I can actually, let me just create a little tag. Let me say tag. Then once I save it, once the tag has been saved, now what I want to do is I can actually maybe just delete the tag. Like I said, the default manager for Django, like if you're not using, if you don't have a custom manager on your model, you don't need to include this default manager as I included here in this articles model. So since I am using a custom manager here, I actually added the default manager and the custom managers here. But here, for example, here in this tag, I'm not using any of those, so I'm just going to leave it like that, and Django is going to use the default manager to manage that model. So once I'm here, I think I'm ready now to move to the next step, because I've added these models to my admin interface. Alright, as you can see, I've successfully added the models to my admin interface. What I want to do now is continue building my blog. After adding it to the admin interface, what I want to do now is to tell Django how to form links from my default, from the files in my saved in the project directory. That is, in fact, let's just proceed and let me explain it. This is going to be used to form the URLs. This is going to be used to form the URLs for each file. So if I request a folder or a file in my media root, remember in my media root I have images. So if I request for a file in my media root, Django is going to look for those. So like I was mentioning, if I request for a file in my media root, Django is going to look for that file in my media root. Then I'll form the URL of that file using the media URL I passed in. So let's check that. So this is it. In my media root, I have image file. So once Django grabs any image from here, it's going to use now media root now to form the URL of that media. So that's basically what's happening. So I have to do this in my core URLs. So I'm going to go to core URLs, then now here I'm going to add this. I'm going to put this below. Okay, each time I call for a media file, Django uses the media URL to form the URL. Each time I'm looking for a static file, Django uses the static URL to form the static files. Now what I want to do is to actually import the things needed, because here I'm using static, which is not imported here. So we import static from Django config. So I'm going to import static and settings. So this is my core.urls. I'm just going to paste that here. So I'm using static, which is here, which is going to be used to look for the static file and form the URLs. And I'm using now settings, which is actually my settings files, and is looking for the media root. So settings.media root, which is actually this here. So it's coming in my setting file, then I'm looking for this, the configuration media root, and there is it. I've configured my URL and I'm ready to move ahead. So now we are ready to configure a CKEditor. Now, like I mentioned before, the CKEditor is actually what helps us to have the custom default the rich text editor. So now, since we install CKEditor, maybe you don't know because you do not actually install that manually. If you come to the requirements.txt, you're going to see that we have this app called CKEditor. So now what we want to do is to actually register it in our admin interface, that is configure it that Django knows about the existence. And that's why we previously had an error when we were trying to access the articles model. Like for example, if I come to article and I want to create a new article, that's why I have this error, because I've not yet configured the CKEditor. So I'm going to go ahead now and configure that. So we add first of all CKEditor and CKUploader to our settings.py file. That is, we add it to Django so that Django knows about the existence of that file. So I'm just going to come here, install app, then add this. So I've added CKEditor to a installed app. Now I'm going to proceed to use CKEditor default settings. If you check on CKEditor, I'm going to leave a link in the description so you can read more about it. So, but basically these are the default configurations of it. So I'm just going to use that. And if you want to configure yours further, you can actually read through CKEditor and put your custom settings. So by default, CKEditor is going to upload all its files to a folder called uploads in this as static files, because remember Django uses this to save all its static files. So it's going to come here and create a folder called /uploads, and then now install in. It's going to create a folder called uploads and then save all the files there. And these are just default configuration of how it looks on the admin interface. So once that is done, I've configured my CKEditor on the admin interface. Now what I want to do is to actually add the URLs to that CKEditor. Remember that Django will not be able, or your Django project will not be able to recognize a URL if you don't provide it to your core urls.py file. So I'm just going to come here and include all the parts related to CKEditor on my Django main URLs file. So it's just importing the CKEditor URLs in the CKUploader.urls file, which is in a virtual environment. Like I mentioned earlier, all the files needed by our project are saved in this virtual environment, which makes it easy to manage. As you can see, in this is my virtual environment. I have the CKUploader, and then here I should have the urls.py file, which is this. So it's importing all the urls.py file from this urls.py file, and there you go. Now I'm ready to move ahead. Now what I'm going to do is to run the command python manage.py collect static, which is going to collect all the statics needed by a Django application and save it in a file called static files. So here is a file, so I mean the folder, sorry. So using the command manage.py collect static is going to collect all the static files in our project, that is the HTML, CSS and JavaScript and all the rest. Then now save it now in a folder called static files as we define here. If you change the name of this, it's going to save it in another file having the name you have passed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the server, Control C, and now paste that python manage.py collect statics. Alright, as you can see, it has copied all the static files in a folder called static files. Now I have this file called static file here, which has all the static files needed by a blog or a blog application and the core Django project. So as you can see, I have all the static files related to the admin interface, which is CSS, font, images, JS. I have the CKEditor having all the static files needed by CKEditor, and then I have my CSS and images of my main project. Now after that is done, I think now we are ready to go. Let's just check that everything is well connected here. So I'm just going to refresh this and I'll go to articles. Now as you can see, we are ready to, we can now access like the add article because we have successfully configured the CKEditor. And remember that the CKEditor is actually what permits us to use this CK or this full rich text editor, sorry. So now I'm able to access my models, and remember I have no author here, I have no headline. So this is basically it. Now I've registered all of my models, and what I'm going to do is to actually just add some contents in my database. So I'm just going to now add some contents in my database so I can like look at the data and see if everything is working okay. So we are going to start by adding an author or a profile. So here I'm just going to come here, all right, I've added a profile. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a tag. Okay, I already have one tag. Let me just add another one. There you go. Then I'm just going to add an article. So an article has an author, which is the profile I just created. Then now headline, text field, character field, subheadline. Then now here the image of the article can actually be any image you want. And then now in this body, which we have, which permits us now to have the rich text editor. So as you can see here I have my body with, I can have bold, as you can see now I can have bold. I have some cool features here like rich text editor. Now what you want to do is actually explore all of these. I can add images, I can modify the content as I would like, and what you want to do now is to actually go through this and then add some articles there. So I'm just going to leave this like that. Then now I can make this article to be featured, add tags, control. If you hold control, now you can add different tags. So if you leave control, you're going to be able to add only one tag. So hold control and click on this to select several tags. Then I have the slug. Remember what I said, once I fill in a headline here, the slug is going to be pre-populated with that headline name as mentioned, as shown here. If I come to my admin of the blog, you're going to see that the slug is a pre-populated field from the headline field, and that's why as I created the headline field, it has the same name as my headline field. And there you go. Then I have published, the day the article has been published. Then I have the status, which is draft or published. And there you go. I'm just going to save this and everything is okay. So now what you want to do is actually add contents to your database, and then now we are going to be ready to move to the next part.